welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about Ghost-type Pokemon. Ghost-type Pokemon are, obviously the spookiest type, right? But also, they're a really beloved type, I feel like. So many Ghost-type Pokemon, like Mimikyu and Gengar, are always amongst, like, the top percentage of like fan favorites and stuff, and there's a reason for why. From the beginning, these guys were really cool. Looking back all the way to Gen 1, the ghost types are mysterious. They're also very very different. For one, in the game you're playing in Red, Blue, and Yellow, you actually have to have a specific item called the Oscilloscope to be able to see ghost type Pokemon, which is really neat. You don't see any other Pokemon with this capability of being able to hide themselves behind something else, but ghost types, they're capable of doing this. They do this in the Gen 1 games. Not only this, but there's only one ghost type line. There's the Ghastly line. There's no other ghost types in the Kanto region. So in the beginning, there was only one ghost type line. It's a really powerful type too. It's immune to two types, normal and fighting. And this is back in the days where you would spam Hyper Beam, right? So being immune to that Hyper Beam is kind of wild. Then also fighting types are very popular and very powerful as well, so being immune to that is also crazy. They were only weak to ghost types, and back in Gen 1 they were weak to psychic types as well. Moving into Gen 2, we only get one more ghost type, and this is Mischievous, which isn't exactly a Pokemon that we think of as really powerful, right? Like, sure, Gengar has, even through all the generations, been a powerful Pokemon, but Mischievous is kind of not really much yet. This is our only new addition to the ghost type. They do also change that it is weak to psychic types. Instead, now ghosts beat psychic types. However, they do still make sure to nerf the ghost type a little bit by adding a brand new type called the dark type. The dark type is now super effective against ghost types. Also, the steel type is introduced, and steel types would, until generation 6, it would resist the ghost type. Now, again, not the case anymore, but you're seeing some balance having to be incorporated to take care of this ghost type. And let's talk about the design of these ghost type Pokemon, right? What is Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar? Well, they're really just ghosts. And Mischievous too. It's just a ghost. They're not, is anything crazy, right? Like, ghost types are just ghosts. But then we move into Gen 3, and they start to change this a little bit with Shuppet and Bayonet. Shuppet and Bayonet are ghosts possessing a doll. So you're seeing a attribute that's often given to ghosts in, the real world lore and literature and movies, stuff like that. We're seeing possession take place in the Pokemon world, and we're seeing a ghost type representative of this, which is really, really cool. I think I love how, if you look at any type over the generations, they start to kind of branch it out and diversify it. First few gens, every Pokemon of that type kind of looks very similar, but then they start to diversify it a bit more as time goes on, and that's what they started doing here in Gen 3 with the Ghost type. Gen 4 gets really big, though. We get our first legendary Ghost type Pokemon in Giratina, and boy, is it a big legendary Pokemon. Arguably one of the most powerful Pokemon. Giratina is, it's just insane that this Pokemon exists and that we know about it, right? So the whole idea of Giratina is that it's getting its ghost type to represent gases. The three legendaries of Sinnoh of Generation 4 represent the states of matter. Dialga has the steel typing to represent solids, Palkia has the water typing to represent liquids, and Giratina has the ghost typing to represent gases, which, kind of could be seen as a cool callback to Generation 1, with the first ghost type being Ghastly, Maybe there's a chance that the ghost type is representing more here, though. Giratina could very well be based off of Satan. It's basically Pokemon Satan. For those who didn't know, in a lot of religions that come from Judaism or Christianity, the origin story of Satan is that there was an angel named Lucifer who fell from heaven, and this angel became the devil, Satan, and is kind of the bad guy now, right? Now, Giratina represents this. Giratina was made by Arceus to hold one of the pillars of reality. It is the creator of, or the ruler of antimatter, but Giratina wanted to betray Arceus, and so Arceus banished it to its own world, the Distortion world. So you're obviously seeing a lot of allusion to the Christian story of Lucifer, or the biblical story of Lucifer, where, you have this nice guy become not nice and get banished to his own world, hell, or the distortion world, right? Now, this is interesting. There's a reason I'm pointing this out. This is because demons aren't ghosts, right? They're a whole different thing. So the devil, a fallen angel, is not a ghost. Yet, possibly the ghost type is being used to represent this. Oftentimes, you do have demons and ghosts in, like, a lot of media have similar properties and even be often compared to each other. There's even a lot of people who believe that ghosts are actually just demons in disguise, demons pretending to be ghosts. So the fact that you have the ghost type representing something that's not really a ghost, it's something else, it's representing just spirits in general, that's really interesting, and it's something you'll see get expanded upon with the ghost type as time goes on, because it's starting to take this idea that the ghost type is not just a thing, it's not just a ghost, it's an element that can be wielded. And that's where we jump ahead all the way to Generation 7. We start to see Pokemon like this. Decidueye, for example. There's nothing really dead about Decidueye. If you look at the in real life lore, Decidueye is based off of an owl species that is extinct, which could perhaps be the reason it has the ghost typing on it. But ignoring the in real life lore and looking at just the Pokemon itself, there's nothing about Decidueye that really screams ghost except for its properties. Decidueye is capable of kind of using spiritual elements, which again is just what we talked about. Pokemon starts to take this idea of the ghost being just a ghost and being a property that a Pokemon can control, which makes sense because, of course, there are lots of non-ghost type Pokemon that can learn ghost type moves, right? Like Eevee learned Shadow Ball. Also, it makes sense because this is kind of the way it is with every other type, right? Like even flying types, there are Pokemon that can learn wind moves like Hurricane, and there are Pokemon that can use moves like Flamethrower despite not being a fire type. So it makes sense that they would do this with the Ghost, but it's also surprising that it took them 7 generations to do it. Also, 7 generations later, the Ghost type is still really powerful. So much so that Pokemon is having to revisit one of the original Ghost types, the original Ghost type, in fact, Gengar, and nerf it. Gengar previously had the ability Levitate, which made Gengar immune to ground type moves. Now, this is nice in itself because it's an immunity, but it's especially important to Gengar because Gengar is also part poison type, which does make it weak to ground. And having this immunity to ground made it where Gengar was only weak to Psychic, which Ghost is able to beat, Ghost, which Ghost is able to beat, and Dark. So in a way, you could argue that the only thing Gengar is necessarily weak to is the Dark type, and it gets coverage for that with moves like Dazzling Gleam. So they're having to go and look at this Pokemon, a Pokemon that's been here since Gym 1. I don't think y'all understand. Power creep is a very real thing. This is where Pokemon from the early generations were really powerful at one point, but as new Pokemon and new kind of gimmicks with Pokemon are introduced, these Pokemon kind of get phased out in terms of powerful. They're not as powerful as they once were. It's why Primeape or Tauros were incredibly powerful Mons back in the days of Gym 1, but nowadays the Cantonian Tauros or base Primeape not evolved into Annihilate aren't exactly strong Pokemon. In fact, they're considered by a lot of people to be pretty weak. So you're seeing Gengar avoid this, and they're having to take steps to make him like, we actually have to weaken Gengar a little bit. So they do. They give him Cursed Body, which isn't a horrible ability, but it's definitely no Levitate. I just wanted to point that out because that's important to the overall thing that we're going to look at with the Ghost typing. So looking at where the Ghost type is today, the Ghost type, like I said before, is representing so many things. It's no longer just ghosts, because a lot of these Pokemon were said to be dead once, and these are kind of their spirits coming back, but also other spirits, whether it's demonic spirits like the case of Giratina, or maybe it's representing just the ability to kind of commune with or even tap into spiritual powers, like with Pokemon like Decidueye. The Ghost type is representing a lot more. It also, no matter what generation you look at, is an incredibly powerful typing. So often, ghost type Pokemon are at the top of the game. They are always one of the top Pokemon seen in competitive. Whether it's Gengar back in Gen 1 or whether it's today with Pokemon like Golden Go or Fluttermane, the ghost type is here to stay, and it's a type that is always powerful. And this threat is something that the Pokemon Company is always having to take steps to kind of try to fix or try to balance, right? Constantly, we're seeing nerfs, things like Gengar losing its ability, Aegislash losing some stat points. We're seeing things get created specifically to counter the ghost type, right? Like the ability Scrappy, making it where Pokemon can hit ghost types with their fighting and normal type moves. Or the ability Mind's Eye, where again, you're able to hit these ghost types with your normal type moves. Always, they are trying to do something to make sure that ghost type stays balanced. Arguably more than any other typing, they're having to create things for the ghost typing in mind. Going, okay guys, we've made a new ghost type Pokemon. It's probably going to break the game, so start making some Pokemon to balance that one. And this goes beyond competitive too, right? Ghost-type Pokemon are always some of the most powerful Pokemon in the universe, whether it's the devil himself, or if it's a mythical Pokemon capable of enslaving an entire town. So many ghost types are incredibly cool with really metal backstories, whether it's, oh, this ghost type exists because it carries the souls of all of its fallen brethren, or maybe it's a Pokemon that holds its face, its own face. It walks around with its face. Either way, the ghost type is the type, right? It's one of my favorite typings. And on that note, a great question of the day for this video would be, what is your favorite typing and what do you think of the ghost type? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you like this video. I just kind of wanted to celebrate the ghost type. It is Halloween, it's spooky season, so it feels right? Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and until next time, I'll see all of you later.